Hollywood. Pacers, Lakers, that's right. Jay Will's here. He's fired up. LeBron was fired up before this one, taking on the Pacers. But we'll take you to the fourth, 7:34 remaining. Russell Westbrook. Now, just watch him right here. He spins a little bit, takes the jumper, misses it. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Watch the focus on Westbrook on defense. Blow right by him, looks a little lackadaisical right there. The ball works its way around to Karis LeVert, who blows right by him.
He does not look lackadaisical. He's not even on the court.
Yeah. He's not on the court. And he was on the bench for the rest of the game. And then here's LeVert right here, nailing the three. Now, next possession, Lakers down. LeBron looking for the three. It's a brick. Tough night for the Lakers. They lose 111-104. Listen to LeBron after the game.
How when it bothers him?
Have you followed Russ throughout his career?
Not as closely as you have, probably.
Okay. Have you followed Russ throughout this season? Yeah. Would you think that would bother Russ not being in the late game? Okay. There go your answer.
Boy, you can cut that tension with a knife, right? With regards to Westbrook, by the way, this is really interesting. With regard to him being benched, our Lakers reporter, Dave McMenamin, reported after the game, one source close to the situation described the message from management to the staff as, you got to do what you got to do. Now, he also wrote, quote, reporters weren't the only people Westbrook avoided after the game. He had already vacated the locker room by the time his teammates were finished showering, sources told ESPN, foregoing any post-game discussion with the team. Now, we welcome in Jay Will to the show. And Jay Will, that is so key to me right there. Because right there, you got somebody, he's just walking out of the game, vacating the locker room. You know, I think a lot of fans hear that and they say, wow, why is that happening? What's going on? What do you think was behind Westbrook's benching and what you're seeing right now in Hollywood?
Well, obviously the video shows a lack of defensive effort after a missed shot, right? And that's something where if you're Frank Vogel, you can only coach effort so much. You need your players to do. I want people to think about this for 1 second. In a span of 5 days, we've had LeBron James, after an embarrassing loss to the Nuggets where they got blown out, didn't talk to the media, left early. Now 5 days later, we have Russell Westbrook, their other star player, do the same. Internally, there's something massive happening here. Now, I don't think the personnel fits. It doesn't seem to work to me. Frank Vogel will probably be the scapegoat. But when you start looking at pieces and how it works out defensively, what this team needs, I don't think if you bring Phil Handy in or David Fizdale, that's going to change how this team is being seen. The pieces just don't fit. You have an old team that defensively they were together a couple years ago when they won a championship that fit the way they actually wanted to play from Frank Vogel's perspective. Now you bring an older team in that doesn't have the same defensive-minded players on the team, and that's why they rank 27th in points allowed per game.
Yeah, okay, so then if that's the case, I'm sure Lakers fans are watching this right now, screaming at the TV. So what do we do about this? How do we fix it, given the personnel we have?
You see what trade packages are out there for a guy like Russell Westbrook. You start looking at is John Wall and Eric Gordon from Houston. Is that something that you look to go into? You start looking at a lot of viable options. And I'll ask Lakers fans something realistically, too. And I think he's one hell of a talented player. But watching AD over the last couple of years, is he the future face of your franchise? Like, that's a legit question because the best ability is availability.
Yeah.
And for AD, you're always wondering, like, your injuries is always something that's happening with you. Like, will you be there? So there's a lot of questions looming around. And the last question, who the hell is actually making the decisions? Is that Kurt Rambis? Is that Rob Pelinka? Is that Jenny Buss? Is that LeBron James and Rich Paul? There's a lot of cooks in the kitchen here, and there's a lot of frustration around what the hell is going on.
Now, you mentioned the scapegoats, because when you have a situation like this, there's always a scapegoat. Somebody's going to be blamed. Now, guys, I just want to make sure we have the sound on Frank Vogel, right? Okay, after the game, LeBron was asked about the job Frank Vogel is doing. Take a listen.
I'm not in that business of pointing fingers or pointing blame or trying to put a quote at the end or at the start of someone's commentator of what they feel, you know, our coaching staff or Frank is or where Russ is or where I'm at or AD. If it's not positive for me, it's not my lane. I'm not a negative person. If you got something to ask me besides trying to shit on somebody, I answer those.
Hence why he didn't talk after the Nuggets game. because obviously he was livid and he didn't want to say anything that would demean the franchise or the direction that they were trying to go.
But is Vogel going to be the head coach for the Lakers going forward?
I have no idea.
No.
I really don't know. I'm not going to sit up here on national TV and tell you that Frank Vogel is going to be fired. But what I am telling you is that everything is on the table. I don't think changing the head coach will make other players play harder. He won a damn championship 2 years ago. This comes from internal. Like, when you go for a guy like Russell Westbrook and you trade guys like Kyle Kuzma, KCP, Montrezl Harrell, you can't re-sign Alex Caruso, you lose depth. And now we're seeing this team don't have depth and they can't play D. I think you go personnel first.
Yeah, I'm never one to write off LeBron, but I do not know how this team makes a serious run. I just don't see it.
But see, you say that, and then they beat the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you see glimpses of what they can be when there is a sense of urgency defensively and they all buy in, but that has not been what you've seen consistency from this team.
Okay, so maybe that sense of urgency picks up in the next game. We'll have to see. Jay Will, thank you so much.
Recently, because of the way the Lakers have had this season has played out so far, treading water, trying to keep their head above 500. He said he didn't feel like he was under siege. Lakers lost to the Pacers 111-104. The Pacers outscored the Lakers 35-24 in the fourth quarter. But here's the news, Key, Jay. Vogel benched Russell Westbrook for the final 3:52 of the game. So here is Frank Vogel, Lakers head coach, on his job security.
I don't feel like I'm under siege. It's not hard to do my job. I'm very focused on the task at hand. I've always been that way. And it's really not up to me whether it's fair or not. It comes with the territory. It comes with being the Lakers coach. We have high expectations. This fan base really cares. It's a big market. I wouldn't want it any other way, to be honest with you.
So that's coach. You want to hear from the GM?
Sure. Let me hear from Rob Pelinka.
Here's LeBron James at the post-game presser.
Well played.
I'm not in that business of pointing fingers or pointing blame or trying to put a quote at the end or at the start of someone's commentator of what they feel, our coaching staff or Frank is or where Russ is or where I'm at or AD. If it's not positive for me, it's not my lane. I'm not a negative person. If you got something to ask me besides trying to about it, I answer those.
I love it. I love it. That is exactly what he's supposed to say. You don't buy into things. You just try to get going and get winning, man. If you sit around and listen to people that just want clickbait, then you go fall into that trap. Clearly, the coach is on the hot seat. Things are swirling around the team because everybody expected, had a different expectation going into the season. So, the best thing for them to do is just try to figure out how to get going on the right track.
Meantime, Jay, I agree with Key here. I don't always think I'm just going to be positive is the answer. It depends on the situation. But here, you're asking about is...
He wasn't positive after they got blitzed by Denver. That's why he didn't talk to the media. Smart move on his behalf.
Well, okay, fine. But that's okay sometimes for me,
I'm
too.
okay with it.
I'm trying to keep my mind right. But if you're asking me about my coach's job security, I'm not going to deal with that. He's my coach. We're trying to win. That's all. I'm not going to deal with that.
Yeah, but the whole asking him about job security is because it's LeBron James. You ain't asked the 11th guy on the bench about job security.
No, you're not.
You automatically feel like LeBron James is running the team, so to speak. So you want to ask that question to try to get him in a pickle. That's the slick. All that is slick talk. And he's smart enough to know that ain't happening.
Well, it's slick talk, but the reality of it is that LeBron James wields a lot of power. I mean, there was a reason why, his coach in Cleveland got fired when he first got the job, when he first got over to Cleveland before they actually got Ty Lue, right, to win a championship. So there's reasons why these questions are being asked. And there's so many cooks in the damn kitchen. This is a personnel issue. I don't think this is a Frank Vogel issue. When they won a championship, they had one of the top-ranked defensive teams in the league, guys. They had personnel that fit the scheme that Frank Vogel wanted to play, Key. Now you insert a lot of older age pieces that don't have a defensively minded, sound, way of playing, and they play a different style of basketball. That's why they rank 27th in points allowed per game. It's not who they are.
Let's not underemphasize Anthony Davis's absence. Like, when he plays, it's a totally different situation. A lot of his value is on the defensive end.
Well, a lot of his value is being available, too.
No doubt. And that's always a knock against him.
And when he was playing, it wasn't like the defense was lights out.
Yeah, it's true.
I get that he is a defensive stopper, so to speak, in the paint. He makes the shots different. He can also slide out if need be at times, depending on who's guarding. But the defense was not lights out even when he was on the floor.
It comes down